All right, well, welcome everyone to our Metro Management Council meeting of December 21. We do have a quorum present. Commissioner Karski, fifth member, is absent, and we know he's going to be absent, so we'll have us four today from the council. So we need to approve the agenda that's in front of us, so just need a motion and a second on that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, agenda's approved. Anyone here for public input? Man, I love that. I love that here. Item 3, approval of minutes dated August 19. We had gotten those submitted to us. Any changes to be made by anyone on the council? If not, I'll take a motion to approve those.
Move for second.
All right, motion by Sale, seconded by Benninga to approve those. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the minutes from the 19th are approved. 4, we'll go to the director's report. Scott, good afternoon, man.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Scott McMahon, Director of Metro Communications. We'll start today with a report from our agency, and we'll start with the staffing report. So between January 1st, 2022 and December 19th, 2022, Metro has received 11 resignations from staff who had been working independently as certified operators for more than one year of time in our agency. Metro has received 10 resignations from staff who were hired in 2022 and did not complete their training. Fortunately, Metro has retained 14 operators that were hired in 2022 who are currently at various stages of training. Metro is recruiting to hire up to 4 additional 911 funded positions, and Metro currently has 53 full-time employees. 53 full-time employees is our authorized level of staffing. However, we have the ability to go to 57 with those 4 grant-funded positions. I created a visual aid to try and go through the staffing numbers a little bit easier than in the past by just doing it verbally. So with the chart in front of you, starting at the bottom, we have 31 fully trained operators. With the leadership team, there's 6 additional staff there that can perform all functions of communication operator. We have 1 temporary staff member, and then you'll see that in calls and data in training, it's typically a 10-week training program. We do have 2 people that will be spending an additional 2 weeks in that area, but they should be available about the first week in January to work independently in calls. And then we have 3 people that just started this Monday. Calls data working independently. We have 5 people that are trained to work independently, answering calls, performing EMD type of work, as well as working with our data with law enforcement. And then law enforcement and training, we have 3 people that are about 8 weeks into that training, 8 of the 10 weeks. And then we have 1 person that's about 4 weeks into that training. And then the other one behind that represents the 1 person that's in calls and data approved to work independently. We have brought that person back into the law enforcement portion of her training so that she can start working on that next portion of training. So there's the entire staffing at this point. And I just want to shout out to the entire Metro team for all the work that they've done to recruit, train, and continue to train the 14 people that we have in training right at this point in time. So just, I can't say enough thanks to the team for everybody just really pitching in, working together to make this happen. So I'm very, very happy to be ending the year with 53 full-time employees, and then now we can start focusing on those grant-funded positions as well as some overhires. So, are there any questions on the chart or anything that I've said to this point?
Questions on the staffing piece?
Yeah, I got a question, Scott. So you've got 11 that are resigned, and 10 resignations in training. So that means 21.
Yep.
You have 51 or 53 full-time authorizations.
Right.
Talk to me about the turnover that you've had. That to me seems like a huge, I mean, almost 40% turnover in your staff. What's going on with that?
So we did a deep historical look at staffing at Metro, and going back to 2 decades, typically our turnover rate is about 25% on average each year. And with that, the majority, 39% of the people resign in the first year of their employment. So we've traditionally had a high number of turnover in that first year of employment. I think this year, the 11 full-time staff that had been with the agency for more than a year is higher than it normally is. And then with bringing in 10 new people that didn't make it through training, that left the agency anywhere between 3 weeks and 3 months, really made it a challenge for us, because then we had to rehire those positions. And that's been our struggle this year, is not just the fact that we lost 11 people, but we brought in 10 people that we had to rehire for those 10 positions. So it's been a challenge. It really has been a challenge for our agency this year. And the reason why people leave, it's really across the board, various reasons. Some of it's scheduling. Some of it is wanting to work from home. Some of it is wanting to work in a different career. It's just some of it's been some health reasons why people have left. So it's been just a wide variety of reasons. One thing that we have done is we've started working with city and county HR to further expand our exit interview process, to try and get more information from staff that have left, to really drill in on why is it that people are leaving the agency.
So so the HR people are helping you with enhanced exit interviews to find out where that is. Well, I'd be interested in maybe sometime in the near future taking a look at that.
Absolutely.
To see what it is. I mean, I hire a lot of people, and rarely do we have anybody leave in the first year because of the screening process that we do and explaining them what they have to do in the job that we're hiring from. So I guess that's a concern to me, and I know we're in a unique employment environment, but high turnover would be a concern that I would hope we could address.
I would agree, and I hope that as we move into 2023, that we'll have a reversal of what we saw this year, that we'll be able to stay full staff, that we'll be able to bring new operators into the environment and have better success than what we did with the 10 people that didn't stay with us this year.
Thank you.
The 10 new
Other
recruits.
staffing questions on this? All right.
Okay. The next item on the director's report is that we track all the additional hours that our team works to cover staffing vacancies while new hires are completing their training, while staff are continuing education, attending meetings, additional assignments that they may have. I just wanted to present you with a comparison of hours to cover vacancies for 2020, 2021, and 2022. So the total number of hours for vacancies in 2020 was 4,242 hours. Now, these are not overtime hours. These are base pay, regular pay hours. The total number of hours for vacancies in 2021 was 3,663. And then through October 31st of 2022, the total number of hours for vacancies is 4,077 that our operators filled. And in addition to that, there's 1,341 hours that the leadership team filled. So total this year, the total number is 5,418 hours of additional time required to cover vacancies in the agency. So again, everybody is coming together to make sure that our vacancies are covered and that we're meeting our mission. So are there
Do
any?
those other years include the leadership hours?
Yes.
So, but the 2022 numbers don't?
So that's an error that I made when I put 4,077. I didn't include the leadership team in there. So I wanted to make sure I said that today, that the 1,341 additional hours brings us to 5,418 hours for this year.
Probably would be good to update that for the record, to have that, so that they're all the same data points in the minutes. And
All right. Any other questions in that area?
go ahead.
Metro Communications continues to meet all of our call answering time standards set forth by National Emergency Number Association. And the NENA standard establishes that 90% of 911 calls shall be answered within 15 seconds and 95% of 911 calls should be answered within 20 seconds. So during the month of November, Metro Communication operators answered 95.73% of 911 calls within 15 seconds. So we're meeting that standard. And then 98.18% of 911 calls were answered within 20 seconds. So again, I just want to recognize staff for all the work that they're doing to answer calls in a timely manner and do it within national standards. But I also want to emphasize that staff are doing this knowing that we're not at full capacity, knowing that there's always a need for additional staff to continue to meet these types of standards that are upon us. So I just wanted to make sure that I recognize staff, but like I say, at the same time, recognize that we'll need to continue to grow the agency as calls for service grows and to meet the needs of our community. All right, the last item is Metro Communications continues to maintain a high degree of accuracy in our emergency medical dispatch standards. During the month of October, Metro Communications had a 91% compliance and a 9% non-compliance in processing EMD calls for service. We are an ACE accredited agency, and you'll see on that chart that there's some red lines. We have to stay to the left of those red lines, and in this chart, we are meeting the standards as set forth by the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch. So again, those are very respectable percentages for our agency to achieve. And then the last item is just an update on calls for service and push to talks. Calls for service being to the left, push to talks being to the right. So far this year, third quarter, we're at 263,634. I suspect by the end of the year, we will pass our number from last year, which was 267,000. So I think we'll see some growth in the total number of calls for service this year. You can see on the police side, as far as the calls for service, it's fairly level. Fire is up a little bit, EMS is up a little bit. And then on the push to talks, those are every time there's a radio transmission from law enforcement or fire EMS to Metro Communications, that counts as a push to talk. And you can see on the police side, we've tried to do a number of measures over the years to reduce the number of push to talks, and that is continuing to trend downward, which is very helpful for our agency. Because right now we have two councils dedicated to law enforcement radio communications, as well as a sheriff's office council for communications, and we're seeing those numbers go down. So that's going in the right direction for us. Fire is fairly steady since second quarter of this year. And then EMS is starting to trend downwards as well, which is, again, good news for us. Then the last call is telephone, or the last chart is telephone calls. Right now we're at about 325,072 calls. I suspect by the end of the year we'll pass last year, which was 337,000 telephone calls. And you can see where those calls are being answered. We try and avoid answering calls that are PD councils because, again, we want to have those operators available to hear radio traffic from our responders. Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office council, we are taking a few more calls than what we did the previous quarter, but again, we're trying to not take calls at a law enforcement council like that. Data has trended down a little bit, and fire has stayed fairly steady. Call taker positions is down a little bit as well. So, all right, and that's the director's report.
All right. Questions for Scott on any of those items that we covered? All right. Scott, thanks. We'll go to our meeting schedule adoption, item 5. Is that me? We need a motion to approve that, or is that the, okay. So there's our meeting schedule. Any issues?
That's a long ways out to tell if I have any issues.
I don't know. This is how we do it? We just adopt it?
That's how
Okay.
we've done it in the past. Yes, sir.
Motion by Sale, seconded by Cole to adopt the 2023 meeting schedule. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we adopted that schedule. 6, new PSAP construction procurement.
Okay, so I wanted to bring an update to you as far as what type of purchases that we've committed to so far for the new facility. And the first portion of this chart, or the top chart, identifies the $2.15 million that the Minnehaha County contributed towards this project for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Out of the 2.15 million, we had our initial or original cost estimates, which are shown in the chart as estimated costs. And then it shows what funds have been committed so far, and then it indicates the remaining funds. So if we go to the last line of that where it talks about network, KVM switches, copy machines, you'll see to the far right it says $90,023.76. That's what we have remaining out of the $2.15 million. We've committed funds. The remaining of the funds have been committed already. So I want to just walk through a couple things in this FF&E chart. And the first thing is a logging recorder purchase and update. It says $45,592. That's the second line from the bottom of this chart. When we established our FF&E budget, we did not have this item in that budget because we were looking at about 3 different options that we had with the vendor. One was to try and build off of our current system. 2 was to buy a new server, and 3 was to look at virtual servers. So this item did not make our initial FF&E budget because of the time frame that it took to research after we had to have our budget set. So there's a $45,000 cost there. And then as you move up the chart to the office furniture, we have about another $15,000 worth of furniture that'll need to be purchased. And then the line above that, the computer monitors, display monitors, we have about another $30,000 that we estimate that we'll need to purchase. So the $45,000 recorder plus the $30,000 in computer monitors, display monitors, plus $15,000 in furniture is $90,000. And then if we drop back down to the last line, the network KVM switches, we have about $7,000 there. So we need about $97,000 worth of equipment, and we have $90,000 remaining in our budget. So we're about $7,000 over at this point, but again, that's an estimate. We might be able to come in a little bit less than that.
Computer monitors, display monitors.
Yes.
We committed 20, but they were 70. That's a huge gap. I'd like to unpack that.
Sure. So we've gained some really good pricing on the monitors that we've already purchased. And then, like I say, we still need about another $30,000 in that line. So that'll put it at 50 rather than 70, but a lot of it's just buying at the right time.
So we just got good deals.
We got some really good
I like
deals.
it.
We're trying to be as frugal as we can, but at the same time, make sure that we buy quality equipment as well. So again, right now we're about $7,000 over. I will tell you that we're working with the state 911 board or the state 911 coordinator on a project that they're looking at rolling out to the 2 largest PSAPs in the state, and that deals with automated call distribution. And it also has a component that helps us keep statistics on call management. So we're working with them to try and determine a price. I estimate that price might be around $25,000 based on some previous discussions. And then we also have an expense of about $10,000 for cabling of the tower at our new site. Those are 2 expenses that I want to talk to you about here in a minute as we go through the rest of these charts. So the next chart, the middle chart, talks about state 911 funding. We received $384,150 from the state to purchase additional radio consoles, 4 of those. And you can see what the cost was for those, $252,000. And then we also received funding to buy console furniture. That was $100,640. And then we also received some funding to buy computer monitors, $30,878. So we have spent the entire $384,150.54. So then the last chart that I want to visit with you about is the state 911 funding allocation for personnel. This is $630,000 that would cover 4 positions completely funded for a period of 2 years. While I'm optimistic that we'll be able to remain full staff at 53 so we can start taking advantage of these 911 funds, I also know that it's going to be a real challenge for us to stay full staffed for an entire period of 2 years to be able to draw these funds down. So just as an example, right now we're at 53. And if we brought on 4 grant-funded positions in February of next year, which is our next training class, but then we had 2 resignations, we're only going to get funding for 2 of those positions, not 4 of them. We have to maintain that balance of 53 because this money is authorized for additional operators, not to cover current operators. We always have to be above 53 to collect those funds. So my recommendation, after having discussions with leadership staff as well as our union representatives, my recommendation would be to ask this board to allow us to contact the state and reduce that $630,000 by $86,778, which is the cost of the phone system in the top chart. There's a one-time non-recurring charge of $86,000. If we could cover that $86,000 with some of these personnel funds, that would give us about $40,000 additional for any other things that might come up related to the new facility. It's essentially a $40,000 non-allocated funding that we'd have available. Like I say, I did have conversations with our staff, the union as well, to let them know that, you know, if we do that, if we made that move, what that would mean is we'd hire 3 positions this year, and then next year we'd hire that 4th position for 911 funded. So we're dropping off 1 position for 1 year to be able to cover that $86,000.
Do you think the state would be okay with that, moving funds like that?
We have had discussions with them. They also realize that, you know, we, as an agency, have always tried to do overhires, which comes out of our metro budget, to help protect us against situations where we have resignations and then all of a sudden we're falling below our minimum staffing levels. So what we would do is move forward with our overhires as well as try and move forward with these 911 funded positions. And I think, you know, with all the training that we need to continue to do to get caught up in all the different areas, it'll help us in that area, but it'll also, we're not necessarily shorting a position in the agency. It's just for this 1 year, and then next year we'd go after that 4th position. So with the overhires, with the 3 positions, we're still going to be at 5 positions.
Questions on that from anyone here?
I guess my question, excuse me, my question would be when you're experiencing almost 40% turnover, is that included in your overhires, expecting to frankly decrease your funding allocation from the state? I'm not quite sure where you're going with your estimated costs, so to speak.
Sure. So let me back up to the original grant proposal to the state for these 4 operators. That $630,000 was based off the wages for 4 people for 2 years. By reducing that $86,000, it would give us 3 grant funded for this year. What is your question?
But your turnover rate's been almost 40%, so aren't you expecting to lose some of those 3 for sure?
It's very possible that that we will lose positions next year. You know, we'll have resignations, I should say. We're not losing positions, but we'll have resignations. And, you know, the fact remains, though, that we can only train so many people at a time. We only have enough capacity to train based on the number of training officers that we have and based on our training coordinator's ability to bring in new classes. So even if we do have resignations, we can only bring so many people into the agency at one time, and that's why I'm saying by reducing us the 1 position, it'll help us to manage the training process that we have in place and make sure that we're able to effectively train everybody that we're bringing on board.
You got that?
No, not really. I'm still trying to figure out why that wouldn't be a priority instead of the telephone system, to be honest.
Sure. So, you know, this was just a recommendation. We certainly can stay with the 4 operators for 2 years as the grant has been written and approved. This was a measure to help keep us in budget for the FF&E. Like I say, it's a move to help us stay in budget and give us some ability to work with the state to purchase another software item that we're looking at in the future, as well as make sure that we stay in budget.
I have a question on that also. So how many, so you have to have 4 people currently with this, what's here, you have to have 4 people above your authorized staff to
Correct.
grab that. How many times, how many days in 2022 have you had fully staffed 53 people?
For about the last 3-4 days. We brought 3 people in on the 19th. That has brought us up to full staff, but other than that, we have not been full staffed.
So explain to me the process you're gonna go to keep full staff for the whole year and keep 4 more or 3 more additional people when for the past 345 days, you've only hit it 3 times. So how are you gonna do that for 365 days and then another 365 days to keep that?
That's why I said I'm very optimistic, and I know it's going to be a challenge to do that. And that's why I recognize that it might be prudent for us to start thinking of other ways that we could use this allocation of money. The state provided us with $1,040,000 roughly about 2 years ago, and they wanted us to start spending this money down in 22 and 23. We have not been able to spend any of this $630,000 in 2022. So to start using those funds, it was a recommendation to say, let's hire 3 people and then let's use some of this funding that, as you're stating, we may never get to use those funds because we always have to be full staffed, and it's difficult for any public safety agency to always be full staffed. In a perfect world, we don't have any resignations for the next 12 months. We use all the funding. That would be absolutely ideal. But at the same time, I know that that's going to be a huge challenge to do that. So this was a recommendation to start using some of those funds. And there is not necessarily a time frame where these funds have to be spent, although of the $4 million that was provided to the PSAPs across the state, I know a lot of those projects were completed almost immediately, and we spent already $384,000 of the money, but we still have this $600 that was dedicated towards personnel. And I know that was a concern of the board when I applied for grant funding, was the same questions that we're asking ourselves today. How do we stay full staffed? How do we make sure that if this funding is for additional staff, that it's for additional staff and not current staff?
I appreciate that, and I think it's probably unrealistic to say that you're gonna turn on a dime and have full staff for a year when we just have not been able to do that, plus an additional 4 people. So if you're able to capture some of this grant money and put it into radios, concrete, whatever you need to do, I guess I'd be for that, instead of being unrealistic and saying, hey, if we keep this level, it's gonna be great. You know, if I stay at 220 pounds for a year, everything would be great. Well, I know that's not gonna happen. So if you can capture that, I would be for that, because if you've only been 3 days of the last 340,
Right.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say that, yeah, running 4 above is great, 3 above is great, 2 above is great at this point, 1 above would be great. So I think what you're saying is, let's try and put this money to work somewhere else where we maybe have overages, and if we get down to where we're only 1 above and able to use that grant money, I think we'd all be doing victory laps, because it would signal that we were been fully staffed for enough period of time that we can get there. So,
Yep.
so I think what you're probably hearing is yes. I mean, if the state would allow us to move it into FF&E out of a personnel grant.
So I did contact the state 911 coordinator, and I asked if we were to revise our allocation from personnel to something else, if that would be allowable. And I was given the answer that the $1,040,000 is for our agency to spend in whatever way we saw most prudent, and that it would just simply need an action from the state 911 coordination board to say whatever we intend to use it for. In this case, the $86,000 towards the phone system that the state is investing about $675,000 into. We'll have this fund, the $86,000, to help pay that one-time non-reoccurring charge. So again, it puts us in budget, and it helps to spend on this money that I think all of us can recognize that it's going to be a huge challenge to always stay full staff to use this money.
All right, well, we got a lot to keep moving through, so let's proceed. Let's go on to item 7 on the tower by Hartford.
Absolutely. So item number 7, you may recall during the May 12th storm of this year, our paging tower located just outside the city of Hartford was destroyed in that event. Metro Communications maintained the ownership of that communications tower. This ownership required us to have financial responsibility for insurance, utilities, maintenance, leasing of the private property. And then on August 19th, we came before Metro Management Council, and we asked to have the board approve the receipt of insurance claim less the deductible and the depreciation. So at that time, we asked you to accept the $50,482.90 as we had done a review of that tower site and made a determination at that point that we didn't have an immediate need to replace the tower. Well, since then, the communications tower providing paging services for rural fire departments in the communities of Crooks, Colton, Hartford, Lyons, and Renner. Since the storm event, these fire departments have depended on alternative notifications from Metro. And the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office is currently planning a radio enhancement project to improve upon radio communications in the county. The Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office, along with rural fire departments, would see a benefit from a newly erected tower at that present location. So the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office is requesting for Metro Communications Agency to claim the remaining insurance for depreciation in the amount of $44,874.10 and contribute that the combined $95,357 in insurance proceeds towards the replacement of that communications tower. So that tower will then be used for radio enhancement across the county, a countywide simulcast system, much like we have in the city, a city simulcast system. So to support that enhanced radio coverage, so that not only can there be coverage across the county with mobile radios, but now you'll be able to do that with portable radios as well. And this tower will support those enhanced radio communications, as well as the possibility for us to put paging equipment back on there if that's the agreement of county fire departments to go back to that type of paging. We did recognize that in the future there will be another option for paging, and we want to discuss that with county fire departments as well. So, but there is a need to place this tower back on this property. And the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office at a recent county commission meeting did get the approval for the $3 million to move forward with this county simulcast system. And Metro wants to be a good partner and work with the Sheriff's Office. And in the near future, we'll come back. We'll talk to you about what responsibilities Metro have as far as lease agreements or property agreements or any other fees that may arrive as a result of maintaining the simulcast system once it's built out and turned over to Metro Communications.
Questions?
I would just be very careful if you claim that your tower is destroyed and somebody else puts up the tower and lets you use it, make sure you're gonna get that holdback from the insurance company. And if we don't put it up, they might not give you your holdback. So make sure that the cooperative agreement you have with the Sheriff's Department identifies us as maybe a co-owner or co-op, whatever they need to do.
So this one particular tower would be the response of Metro Communications to erect, and then the Sheriff's Office with their project would come back at a later point and install equipment on it, as well as maybe some other infrastructure, a radio communication shed, some power, that type of thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just deviate a little bit here, and other than, an insurance guy and a former firefighter, I'm gonna speak for my other colleagues, but this kind of highlights, honestly, the lack of knowledge on this board to govern this agency. Because this could be the smartest or the dumbest thing to do. I have no idea. I don't know the right questions to ask. I don't know if this is needed. I don't know what technology we're running. There's no one from the sheriff's office represented on our board here. So this is what I struggle with the governance of Metro, which I think we're gonna have to explore at some point, is having 2 city councilors and 2 county commissioners and a mayor be the governing body for an agency that's as technical as this, when none of us have any PSAP experience or 911 experience. It's very hard because we don't know the right questions to ask. And so I'm looking at the sheriff's people. Is this the right thing to do? I don't know. It maybe, but we make decisions on stuff, and in the last on moving money to this computer, I don't know if that computer system is the right, I don't know. And so it's hard for me to chair this meeting. This is just getting it all on the table as someone who I'm chairing something I know nothing about. And I don't have a sheriff's office person at the dais here that I can say, well, let's turn to them. They're the expert. What do you guys think? Is this the right thing to be doing for the county? Because, we don't have that expertise here. I don't have anyone from the city. I don't have a fire chief, or you guys know PSAPs, police chief, fire chief. I don't know anything about a PSAP. So I share that just to get that out there, because one of the things I want to keep exploring is this the right governance structure for this group? Do we have a 5-person body that's composed of the right people? Do we need a 7-person body? That we need to add a county expert that lives in the PSAP space and a city expert that lives in the PSAP space? Do we only need 1 counselor and 1 commissioner on this, and instead have subject matter experts on this? So I've been and worked through enough boards now that boards are great when things are great, but then when things aren't, and then you don't have the right people to ask the right questions, that's when it can hit the fan. And so we've obviously been spending a lot of time outside of Metro working through this stuff, but I'm getting a lot of tuition on having to ask the stupidest questions about how this stuff works because I don't understand it. And so it's nothing to respond to. It's just I wanted to get that on the record in the minutes that I'm struggling with the governance of Metro and the group we have governing Metro. Because, but for 4 times a year, which we just approved, we meet 4 times a year. That's it. That's the depth of most of our knowledge in Metro. We come to a 90-minute meeting 4 times a year. And we're supposed to lead a multi-million-dollar agency that we have nothing to do with other than 90 minutes 4 times a year. It's very hard. It's very challenging. And in my management experience, it's not efficient. So getting that on the record, we're going to be talking more about that, both at this meeting and offline, I believe. Yeah. So with this item specifically, I will look at our friends in the county. Is this right? Should we be doing this? Joe, Jeff, you want to speak to this?
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Bosman, Sheriff's Office. Yes, this tower replacement is going to greatly benefit the partnership that we have with Metro Communication. It's going to survive and enhance the portable radio coverage in the rural areas for our fire departments, EMS, and law enforcement out there. So it would greatly benefit that. Like he said, it's built into this mesh network, this simulcast, so each tower is within range of a certain other tower, so they can all talk to each other. So if one gets busy, the other can carry the load. If we lose this one tower, we start losing other options in that area, and we create dead spaces, which right now we have a lot of dead spaces. So the county is committed to doing this project, their infrastructure project, about $3.75 million. Yesterday they approved $3 million with Motorola for us to get that ball rolling. So this tower going up that Metro would put back up with insurance money that we can then put our antennas on, it would be greatly beneficial.
Okay, good. Thanks, Joe.
problem.
All right, so do we need a motion to approve this? Correct? All right, I'd
I
entertain
would
one.
make a motion to approve.
Second call.
All right, motion by Benninga, seconded by Cole. Any discussion on this item? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that one's gonna pass, and move into item 8, personnel manual revisions.
Okay, these are two personnel manual revisions. So Article 4, Section 4.54, the reemployment of a separated employee. This revision revises the approval process for reemployment of separated employees following personnel and contract guidelines. We'll show you what those changes are here in just a minute. The next one, Article 6, Section 6.06, talks about regular part-time employees. This revision changes vacation accrual for part-time employees to match sick leave accrual calculations. This revision for uniform prorated accrual for both vacation and sick leave makes calculations easier for staff to understand and HR to administer. It also matches the practice for reduced accrual calculations when staff have not worked a full week. So we're going to request the council adopt these amendments to the agency's personnel manual, Articles 4, Section 4.54, reemployment of separated employee, and Article 6, Section 6.06, regular part-time employees. And we'll bring those up for you to take a look at. So you can see the areas that were redlined. It talks about having somebody come back into the agency after a separation. Specifically, what we're running into here is within 60 days, an employee can return to Metro Communications for reemployment as long as that's in good standing. And currently what that requires is approval of the Metro Council. If we have to wait for, like the mayor said, a quarterly meeting to happen, then that person is not able to sometimes get reemployed within 60 days, which causes them to lose their seniority in the agency. So what we're asking for here is for the director to be able to approve the return of an employee without having to bring it back to a Metro Management Council meeting.
All right, questions on this?
How often do you have people coming back, like within the last?
So we've had some interest recently. Unfortunately, the two people that we had that were interested, it just did not come together for them to be able to return, but they had expressed interest, and we wanted to be able to make sure that if we have that situation arise again, that we're able to act on it quickly so that it's for the benefit of that employee, that they don't lose all their seniority rights and so forth by having to take longer than 60 days to come back into the agency.
Other questions? All right, take a motion to approve these revisions.
Move to approve.
Second call.
All right, motion by Sale, seconded by Cole to approve these. Any discussion on them? All right, let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those are gonna pass. Item 9, administrative pay approval.
Okay, so this is for approval of 8 hours administrative pay for December 24th, 2022. In previous years, the Metro Management Council has approved 8 hours of administrative pay for Christmas Eve. This practice is similar to other local governments who close their offices on Friday, December 23rd this year. Metro Communications bargaining agreement, personnel manual recognizes December 25th, Christmas Day, as a paid holiday, but not Christmas Eve. And I would respectfully request this body's authorization to approve 8 hours of administrative pay on December 24th for all regular, full, and part-time employees.
I seem to remember last year, Gerald, us jockeying city and county to handle this differently. What are you guys doing on this on the county?
Well, since the state is pretty well closed on that day, we have given them leave for the 24th, correct? 23rd, yeah.
23rd.
I keep forgetting what day it was.
Okay. So the county did that, city did that as well, so that would be consistent with what both of our bodies are doing, so. Okay. Would take a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Cole, seconded by Benninga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that one's approved. Item 10, Resolution 22-01.
you handling this one, the employee benefits?
Anna Raker, Business Manager. So we have a benefits resolution that, excuse me. So I can pull this up for everybody else to see. Sorry. We identify our benefits providers or vendors that we use for our various benefits, and we have since our inception, and that is approved by Metro Management Council. And so when we make a change to benefit vendors, we bring it before the council and ask for your review and approval. And we've reviewed this with our attorney, and we've reviewed it with our union in our insurance committee also. So we've had a great deal of input from individuals, both union management, and then Drew has also reviewed contracts and that sort of thing. So effective January 1, 2023, what we'd like to do is we want to add a new voluntary supplemental insurance provider. For years, AFLAC has been our sole provider for voluntary insurance, things like cancer, accident, that type of thing. And we made a move several years ago to Principal for our life, vision, and dental insurance because we got great rates with them, and we found that the coverage was comparable. And they have approached us and asked if we would be interested in adding accident, critical illness, and short-term disability. And so we presented it to our staff, and we had enough staff interested to write all three of those plans. And so we're asking that you add them as an additional voluntary insurance. It's just the management from my team for the HR part of it. And anybody who has AFLAC can stay with AFLAC. It doesn't have to be one or the other. They can choose either or both. The other thing that is occurring is our drug and alcohol screening company actually changed their name. And so it's the same company, but they just had a name change, so we're going to reflect that. As part of our recruitment process, Metro has had a long-standing process of using a written test to identify appropriate skills for an individual to be successful in this profession. And the company that we've used for many years is no longer providing that test. And so we went out and looked at tests, and we picked out the National Dispatcher Telecommunicator Test. It's a test that's actually marketed through the Sheriff's Association, and it's purchased through the South Dakota Municipal League. And there are many municipalities and other organizations across the state of South Dakota and actually across the nation that use this exact test. We actually administered it to a group of our staff. We had about 8 staff who took the test so far. And from the director all the way down to operator, just to get a feel for it. It includes a lot of the things we did in our old test, but it also adds a multitasking component, which we think is a great addition. And so based on the feedback from the staff who participated, we want to make the move to this new test. And so here is the resolution. And you'll see that here are our vendors, and you can see the changes. So we've had Wellmark as our vendor for health, and you can see Principal as our vendor for multiple services, but we're adding them in addition to AFLAC. They'll also provide additional EAP services, which is just another great resource for staff that's free of charge. And then you can see the name change for PsyQChem is now a nationwide screening. And then the Standard and Associates is the company that provides the NDST test. So I'm asking for approval.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Anna on those 3 changes? All right, I'll look for a motion to approve those then.
Move for approval.
Second call.
All right, motion by Benega, seconded by Cole to adopt resolution 22-01 there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's gonna pass. Move to 22-02, non-bargaining unit pay resolution.
Okay, can you scroll up so I can see the latest version? Oh, I got it here. Okay, so this is the approval of Resolution 2202, non-bargaining unit pay. On December 9th, 2020, the ASME Local 3516 approved to enter into a 3-year labor agreement with Metro Communications Agency. This agreement required a wage negotiation in 2023 or for 2023. The wage negotiated stipulated a 5.25% increase, COLA, for the year 2023. This request is for salaried staff to receive this same 5.25% COLA in order to prevent compression between the various employment positions at Metro Communications. In addition, this resolution establishes the pay grades and scales for a new position, part-time operational specialist, which is a communications operator position. Part-time positions provide an alternative to separation for employees who are in need of reduced hours beyond temporary staff restrictions. Metro Communications intends to cover the personnel costs for these part-time positions using our temporary staffing budget as well as current personnel budget. And I would respectfully request your approval of this resolution for non-bargaining unit pay for 2023.
All right, thanks, Scott. Is this standard? This is what we always do with non-bargaining personnel.
Right.
This is a standard MO. Any questions on this?
Move approval.
Second call.
All right, motion by Sale, seconded by Cole. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's gonna pass. Item 12, audit services for the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so this is for the approval of engagement for financial audit services for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022. Each year, we need to obtain an updated agreement letter, engagement letter from our independent audit firm. Currently, that's Eide Bailey LLP. This letter confirmed our previously approved 3-year agreement for audit services from 2021 through 2023 calendar years. And by approval from Metro Management Council, affirms our agreement to have Eide Bailey complete our annual audit for the current calendar year. Once approved by Metro Management Council and signed by the mayor, this letter is required to be presented to South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit for their review and to gain their approval for the audit services to begin. We expect that audit work begins in December of the current calendar year.
All right, any questions on engaging Eide Bailey here? All right, we'll take a motion on that.
Move for approval.
Second call.
All right, motion by Bennigan, seconded by Cole. Discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that's gonna pass. Move on to our financial review as of November 30.
All right, Anna Raker, Business Manager for Metro Communications. So you have your financials in front of you. This is for the 11 months ending November 30th. I know the meeting is getting long, so I'm going to try to do it abbreviated and you ask any questions you have. We're sitting in a great spot financially as far as our budget, all things considered. You can see that we've exceeded our 911 surcharges estimated for prior years. That's what these amounts here are. And, you know, our cash is sitting in a good position where we would expect to be, and actually better. And we've talked about that in some of the previous meetings, that even though we don't have those grant funds coming in for those local funded 911 Coordination Board funded positions, we also don't have the expenses. And so even though when we get to the current year budget, you're gonna see those missing funds, you're also gonna see that our personnel expenses are down too. So they go hand in hand. So if you don't have any questions about the balance sheet, I'll move on to the comparison of the prior year and the current year. And so what you see here, you can see the surcharges, and you can see that we're doing better than we were last year. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've seen a really big uptick in our surcharges in the last couple months. And so you talk about there's been a few months since we've had meetings. So there's been a pretty big uptick in surcharges. And that's a great thing. And we do as a team, Scott, Amy, and I look at the actual stats and compare when we see differences. And I think that it goes back to population as a whole is growing in the city of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. Even if the state of South Dakota is fairly flat, the growth in our area increases. So we're picking up subscriber numbers in that area. And that would make sense if you think about our growth. So the other thing, I guess, that I would just point out is just some standard things. Personnel increase just by normal step increases and cost of living increases. You also gave some bonuses. You authorized bonuses this year, so that's reflected in the increased payroll as compared to last year. Nothing out of the ordinary as far as operating expenses, but what you are starting to see in here is you're starting to see some of these expenses that you authorized, Scott, to purchase towards that $215,000 towards the funding that's going to be coming from the county for FF&E. And so you're starting to see some of these expenses here. So when you see this $205,000, some of this is maintenance, there's some other grant funded things. You're also seeing some of like the monitors and some of those purchases that Scott mentioned earlier, okay? When we look at this year's comparison, and so on this report, the first column is year-to-date, so it's the 11 months ending November 30th. The second column is the budget through November 30th, so it should be a comparable 11 months. And then you see the variance. And then the next column is the annual budget and then the percentage of the annual. So it gives you a couple different perspectives financially. I will remind you if you're not familiar with how the surcharges flow in, they're basically 2 months behind. So we receive our January surcharges in March, our February surcharges in April. And so right now you're seeing 9 months of surcharges versus 11. Okay. So in here, when you look at this, you'll see the grant funds that were well below what our projections were, and that's what I was talking about earlier. But you can also see that our personnel costs are well below. And when I project out where we're going to be through the end of December, and Scott and I have reviewed these numbers, we're going to be well within our budget for personnel. We're going to be a little below our budgeted revenues because of those local funded positions. However, we're going to exceed our 911 surcharges, which is going to offset that a bit. So that's a great thing. And then when you look at operating expenditures, again, we're sitting in a pretty good spot, but because of all these monitors and these various things that we're purchasing to prepare for next year to take advantage of some of the great prices Scott and Matt found, I'm projecting that we're going to exceed our budget in operations and at the end of December. And we knew that that was going to occur because we were purchasing things that weren't really budgeted until next year. And then in addition, you're going to see some adjustments that we'll talk about next in the budget amendment. We're already accepting items that are sitting on our property. And so from an audit perspective, we have a responsibility if there were to be a fire or damage. And so we've taken action to increase our property coverage to ensure those are all insured, and we've received a certificate from our insurance company. So we've taken care of that, but there's going to be some audit adjustments that we need to prepare for. So what other questions do you have?
So with some of the expenses for the hardware that you mentioned that will cause us to run over, that mean we'll run a surplus next year, or would be the hope?
Actually, no. Those will be funds that would be part of that $2.15 million that is being coordinated between the city and the county for the FF&E.
Okay.
And if you recall, you gave us authority in August to take advantage of some great pricing we found rather than waiting till January. And then we were also concerned about supply and getting items because chips are hard to find and different things are hard to find. And so we purchased those items before those funds were actually transferred to us. So basically, those funds will be like a contribution of revenue to reimburse us for those costs. So I don't think I would call it a surplus.
Got it.
Maybe just an update on what we have for equipment so far that we've acquired. We have about $454,000 worth of radio equipment from Motorola. And then we have about $50,000 in monitors and then another $20,000 in switches. So it's where we're at today with what we have in storage, which we thought would be a great idea to make sure everything had insurance on it while we wait and stage it for the new facility.
Okay, thank you.
If I would request a motion to approve the financials.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Cole, seconded by Sale to approve the financials as of November 30. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those are gonna pass. Budget amendment for 2022, item 14.
So we just talked about this a little bit. We are going to exceed our operational budget because of those purchases, some of the small equipment purchases that Scott mentioned. The radio equipment that he discussed, the $454,000, that would be a capital asset. And so it's just in a different line item within our budget. And budget amendments for Metro are managed at the major category level. So revenue, personnel, operating, capital outlay. And at this point, I'm still working with the auditors, and I've had conversations with Cody Papke, chief accountant at the city. And so we've discussed some of the preparations for how we're gonna schedule and manage how these funds flow through our budget. And at this point, I'm requesting a motion to amend our budget by increasing operating expenditures by $100,000, capital outlay by $500,000, funded through an increased revenue in the amount of $600,000.
All right, questions on that motion? Okay, look for a motion to that effect then.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Sale, seconded by Cole. Discussion there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that amendment's gonna pass for the budget. At this time, we're gonna move into exec session for purposes of and authorized by SDCL 1-25-2, 1, 3, and 4. How does that work in this fancy new room? Do we stay in here? Do we go somewhere else for exec session?
I would say you can do it either way.
Yeah.
If you'd like to leave everybody in here and you can just go into that room.
Okay, that's fine.
Right now, that would work out okay. We've been doing that for our executive.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. And I'm gonna ask Michelle Boyd, you're gonna join us for exec session?
Do we have to have a motion to go into exec?
Do we? Is that how it works?
I think so.
Okay, I need a motion. to
I've
that
been
effect.
around longer than you have, so
I never go into exec session council meetings. I don't know how that works.
we do it every week.
Can I get a
I would
motion?
make a motion.
All right,
Second.
all right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are gonna go to exec session.